The power of perspective. Christine Allman. Newsflash. President Obama gives woman the once-over. We see our beloved president. He's standing on a staircase. The camera is rolling. And this flowing, sensuous woman traipses by him. She's got the waist-length auburn hair. The dark silk purple dress accentuates every provocative curve. And it would seem that our president is marking every luscious step. Or is he? Or is he? Newsflash. It's a question now. Was President Obama giving the woman the once-over? We have our president. He's on the staircase. But there's a camera to his right, thank God, that picks up the rest of the story that we did not pick up in the first camera. And this camera sees a woman is behind Obama. She's asking for help down the staircase. And just as Miss Passionate Purple is going by, he is helping her down the staircase. And what camera number 2 picks up that camera number 1 does not is that the president of France is, yes, giving Miss Purple a hairy eyeball. And that, my fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, is the power of perspective. The power of perspective. You are going to the San Francisco International Airport this evening at 5:30, and you know why? Because your best friend, your very best friend from childhood is going to be on that 5:30 flight. And you've got from now until 5:30 to get your act together, right? You got to get the house organized, you got to go to the grocery store, got to wash the car and feed the dog. You've got a lot to do. So you're going to go to the grocery store now and you're going to pick up your favorite foods, you know what to buy. And you're going to get the candles, and you're going to get the wine, and you're going to get the flowers, and you're getting over to your car when bang! Somebody bangs into you. And your groceries go skittering down the pavement. And you're just about to bust this bozo in the chops as you look at your eggs now in liquid form. When you notice the white tip of a cane. White tip of a cane. The person that just struck you is blind. What just happened to the energy in the room here? You guys were like, yeah, go get him, Christine, go get him, yeah! Then there was this moment like, oh, maybe you ought to tell him you're sorry. Ever done that? Hit a blind person and you're the one? And that's the alchemical moment in the power of perspective. In the power of perspective. There was a great Hindu sage and saint. His name was Patanjali. He lived about 3,000 years ago. And he said, when we change how we look at things, what we look at changes. I say it again. When we change how we look at things, and we have the power to change how we look at things, what we look at changes. What we look at changes. Give you another example. I got a guy in my home group. He's been coming to my home group for 28 years. Every day. Every day he drives in with the same car, he parks in the same place, he sits in the same place in the room, he shares about the same time, and he usually has the same things to say. You know the drill. Now this guy is pompous and arrogant and opinionated and a royal pain in the tooth. Okay? This guy, and yet, having sat with him myself now for 18 years, I can say that this guy is now my guru. He's my spiritual guru. You know why? Because he makes me operate those spiritual muscles. The spiritual ones. The ones of tolerance. The ones of patience. The ones of kindness. The ones of compassion. And as I've operated these muscles, I find this guy's actually a lot smarter than I gave him credit for. Sort of like our parents. Remember how stupid your parents were when you were 13? And how smart they got when you turned 30? Did they change? No. What changed was you and me. It's the power of perspective. I was talking with a girlfriend of mine. She's a comedian in Marin County. Her name is Jan Wall. Maybe you might know her. And she said to me, you know what true comedy is, Christine? I said, no, what? She said, true comedy is tragedy plus time. True comedy is tragedy plus time. When we can learn to laugh at ourselves, that's when we really find our sense of humor. But as we know, time takes time. That's the good news. That's the bad news. So I'm going to give you another more intimate story. And this involves my brother. My eldest brother is 30 years older than I, which means when I turned 50 this year, he turned 80. Talk about your generation gap. Which also means that when I was 2, 3, and 4 years old, he was 32, 33, and 34 years old. And that was the time when he began to beat me. He was my perpetrator. And as most perpetrators, he would beat me when no one was looking. He would do so in the front yard. He'd slap me down, he'd bang me, he'd pick me up by my hair, and he'd throw me to the ground, he'd kick me. And as a little girl, I'd come running up to my mom and dad, and I had to tell them what my brother did, but they weren't buying it. You know, Sid would come up with some excuse or some reason or whatever. I probably deserved it, was the response. And my brother banished me from his home when I was 16 years old, telling me never to darken his door, telling me I was a no good, I'd never amount to anything, and that I had to sign myself up into the San Francisco psychiatric unit as a crazy person. And how I hated this brother, how I resented this brother. I told my mom, when that man dies, I'm going to have a party that's going to make the 4th of July look like a backyard barbecue. I'm going to be so happy when this guy goes. And yet, there's camera number 2. There's camera number 2 on this story. Because I discovered that my brother was abandoned. He was abandoned by my father. He was rejected by my father, and he was abandoned by his mother. When my father and his mother, Sid's mother, divorced, my father wanted nothing more to do with the wife. He wanted nothing more to do with the kid. Paid her a lot of money, sent them on their way. The wife took the money and disappeared with some ne'er-do-well musician and to the wilds of South America, leaving her little boy, her only child, in a boarding house in Reno, Nevada. Little dusty town of Reno. That was during the late 1920s, early 1930s. Our country was going through a depression. He had to fend for himself. So that when he viewed his father 30 years later, living in a Tudor mansion with the pool and the orchard and the golden retriever and the Jeep in the garage, and this little, blonde, blue-eyed baby as the product of that marriage, he didn't much like it. He was angry. He was jealous. He was resentful. And he took that jealousy and that rage and that resentment and poured it out onto me. And I can tell you, even as I'm speaking this story, that I'm having an alchemical moment. I'm softening up even as I'm telling you this story. I'm finding that I cannot necessarily condone the beatings, but I can, because I understand the underpinning of his behavior, I can find compassion for his brother. And as I find compassion, then maybe I might find forgiveness. And for my money, that is the power of perspective. The power of perspective.